In ancient hedgerows and along forgotten country lanes, it waits. Gnarled, thorny, crowned in white blossom, the hawthorn tree is more than just a marker of spring. To the ancients, it was a threshold between worlds, feared and revered in equal measure. A tree of love and death, of fairy mounds and sacred groves. In this episode, we explore the mystical world of the hawthorn, its role in Celtic mythology, British and Irish folklore, ritual traditions, and the tales whispered by hearthfires for centuries.
Hawthorn bloom and bridal white, calls the May and brings delight.
The hawthorn, or Crataegus monogyna, is a small hardy tree native to Europe, North Africa, and Western Asia. It flowers in late April to May, covering itself in clouds of white or pale pink blossoms, known as mayflowers, with a sweet yet slightly musky scent. These flowers give way to bright red berries in autumn, called haws. It's also known as the May tree, thorn apple, and in Irish, seach geel. The hawthorn thrives on edges of fields, roads, and realms. Its dense thorns make it ideal for hedging, but it has always been more than a practical plant. In folklore, the hawthorn marks the boundary between the mortal world and the fae. In Celtic tradition, the hawthorn was one of the most sacred trees, associated with the otherworld and the cedar, the fairy folk. It often grows beside standing stones, holy wells, or atop fairy mounds, and is never to be disturbed. One Irish legend tells of a man who tried to cut down a hawthorn growing on a fairy hill to build a fence. The next morning he was found mute and trembling. His axe snapped in two. He never spoke again. The locals said the fairies took his voice. Thomas the Rhymer, the 13th century Scottish mystic and poet, met the fairy queen by a hawthorn from which a cuckoo was calling. She led him into the fairy underworld for a brief sojourn. Upon re-emerging into the world of mortals, he found he had been absent for 7 years. Across Ireland and Scotland, single hawthorns called lone bushes were considered fairy portals. To damage one was to risk your life or your luck. Entire roads and building projects have been rerouted to avoid disturbing these trees. Trees in Ireland were associated with the development of the Ogham alphabet, and tellingly the letter associated with hawthorn within that is hwath, thought to mean fear. Its association with the fae is one to be respectful of, lest they pay you a visit and bestow you a misfortune, perhaps even kidnap you. And to disturb a lone hawthorn is to do so at risk of such a misfortune, and hawthorn was never to be brought into the home. Hawthorn has also been connected to Christianity, with some believing that the crown of thorns worn by Jesus was made of hawthorn. Despite its fearsome associations, the hawthorn is also a tree of beauty, fertility, and love. Its blooming season, Beltaine, May Day, was a time of celebration and union in Celtic lands. Couples would dance around maypoles and leap over hawthorn fires for fertility, luck, and passion. Garlands of hawthorn blossoms were worn by maidens and hung over doorways. But bringing the flowers into the house was taboo. Doing so was believed to invite death or misfortune, especially before May Day. In medieval England, hawthorn was used in wedding wreaths and bridal charms, while in Wales, hawthorn wood was burned to banish evil spirits from homes. In a Cornish tale, a woman left hawthorn blossoms on her window ledge to ward off the attention of a malevolent spirit. That night, the spirit came, but could not cross the threshold. The scent of hawthorn drove it away. Beyond myth, hawthorn has long been used as medicine and magic. In folk healing, the berries and leaves were used to strengthen the heart and circulation, calm anxiety and restlessness, support longevity and inner peace. Magically, hawthorn was used to create protection charms. break curses, aid in dream work and contacting the dead. Wands of hawthorn were said to be powerful but volatile, used only by those who had mastered both light and shadow. In modern witchcraft and pagan traditions, the hawthorn retains its liminal magic. It's used in Beltaine rituals, fertility rites, and love spells. Its wood is favored for crafting wands and staffs that deal with threshold magic, between life and death, love and loss, seen and unseen. Its thorns are used in protection spells, banishing rituals, and even binding magic. The hawthorn is said to teach patience, respect, and humility, reminding us that not all magic is ours to command. In England, there's a story of a hawthorn that bloomed in winter, seen as a miracle or a warning. It was said the tree marked the grave of a woman wronged by her lover. When her spirit found peace, the tree stopped blooming out of season. Medieval folk also asserted that the smell of hawthorn blossom was just like the smell of the Great Plague in London. Botanists later discovered the reason for this. The chemical trimethylamine present in hawthorn blossom is also formed in decaying animal tissue. In the past, when corpses were in the house for several days before burial, people would have been very familiar with the smell of death. Robert Graves in The White Goddess links hawthorn to eroticism, death, and initiation. In medieval ballads and May carols, hawthorn often represents virginity, springtime, or temptation. Shakespeare refers to hawthorn hedges in A Midsummer Night's Dream, set among fairy woods and mischief. In Ireland, the 1999 construction of a motorway near Latoon was halted when a folklorist warned that a fairy hawthorn stood in the planned path. The workers refused to cut it down, and the road was diverted. To this day, the tree still stands, untouched. Like many of our wild hedgerow trees, hawthorn faces threats from overdevelopment and modern agriculture, yet it remains one of the most resilient and rooted symbols of folk wisdom. It reminds us to respect boundaries, to honor the unseen, and to move through the world with reverence. So next time you pass a flowering hawthorn, stop, listen. You might just hear the old stories stirring in the wind. Thank you for joining us beneath the blossoms of the hawthorn, a tree of magic, mystery, and memory. If you believe in the old ways, or you've heard a hawthorn story of your own, share it in the comments. Like, subscribe, and join us next time as we walk deeper into the forest of myth and meaning. And until then, stay safe and stay enchanted.